Hello. I'm here to have a talk on juice. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what juice is, what the term means. I'm also gonna point you towards some other great talks on juice that I've seen that this talk is kind of based on.
Is there not being picked up? Yeah, it works. Oh, yeah, it does.
Okay. I'm going to show you a great example of some great juice I saw in the product not that long ago. And I'm going to show you a couple of tools that I usually use on game jams that help juice your game a lot. Yeah, juice, its effects that make your game more compelling to interact with. It works. It's not just for games. A lot of products use like sort of juice to make the product just feel more fun to play with. I'm going to show you an example that I saw on Kickstarter not that long ago. Some of you might have seen it. The Pebble Time, the new Pebble watch. I'm just going to start the video like sort of 30 seconds in. And the animations on this watch. I'm not interested in a smartwatch per se, but just like the way that the animations work and how it looks to interact with it, it made me really interested in the whole thing. I think I've seen this movie like 5 or 6 times. It's just super juicy. And that's sort of how you want your game to be. You want your game to be irresistible to players. You know, you want them to want to pick up that controller and just play the hell out of it. And I'm gonna show you a project that I did for a Ludum Dare that I've sort of played with afterwards. That's it's very simple. Starts out very simple, and I just want to show like the thought process behind adding juice to it and what it ends up looking like in the end. And it's a little platformer, side-scrolling platformer, where you just walk around, jump. That's pretty much it. You have collision detection on the walls and on the floors, and it's just a hitbox jumping around in an environment. And it's not very interesting. And during this Ludum Dare that I was participating in, I didn't want to spend time on pixel art, even though I like doing that. I just felt like I would like to use as little time as possible on actual graphics and rather spend my time elsewhere. So what I started doing was sort of like, okay, so what can I do to make this feel more interesting and sort of communicate better with the player? Because one of the ways to check if your game is sort of communicating well is to pause the game at any point and see if you can understand what's going on. So if you pause the game at any place here, it's like you don't really know what's happening. Are you on your way up or down? Are you walking in a direction? And it's just like, so I wanted to rectify that to make sort of to make more interesting animations without adding lots of graphics on top of it. So the first thing I did was to add tilting in the direction of movement. So now you can see in which direction you're actually moving. So if you pause the game, or even if you're in midair, you can sort of like, okay, now you can see that you're jumping towards the left. At least the game communicates something without it communicates sort of something about the state of the game without any without being like sort of static. And then I added a stretch on your avatar when you jump, so it like feels a little bit more juicy, and also it gives you sort of like the same thing, that it communicates something about your game, even if nothing. I didn't add any more mechanics to the game. It's just like sort of it tells the player that this person just jumped. Gives you more sort of. It's like filling in the blanks, sort of, in the interactions in the game. working further on this note, I added some elastics on like jump on squash on you when you land. So this guy, he's starting to feel sort of, it's like this juicy little triangle now, not this static hitbox. That's or rectangle, not just a static hitbox that is moving around on the screen. He still looks like he's like sort of sliding around and not walking. So I added some head bobbing while he's walking. So he sort of like jumps a little bit. Looks like he's taking some footsteps when he's walking. And you could, of course, add sound to this to make it even more juicy and make it feel better when you're moving around, which is probably the least expensive, like sort of juicy thing you can do in a jam, to add sound effects. That's gonna, it's the easiest way to make your game communicate when like you hit something or you jump, land, an enemy explodes, footsteps, all that stuff. Like implementation wise is probably the easiest one. When working on this stuff, there was one thing missing that also, it wasn't just like sort of a visual thing, but it affects gameplay a lot, that it feels really slow when you turn. It really feels like you're standing in syrup. So I wanted to do something sort of juicy to make that transition between walking from the right to the left and showing that there's some friction. So I added like sharp turning. So he just sort of like lays over when you go to the other direction, and it looks like there's some friction in the ground that's stopping you from sort of like turning on a dime. And after I added that, of course, the next step is to add dust clouds. So it's sort of like, I feel like you're actually interacting with the ground. So now you know that it makes it feel like this world is more real, and it also like just underlines the fact that you just made a sharp turn on the ground, or you jumped and you landed. And if you pay close attention, you can probably see that, or maybe you can't see it, but at least the clouds, they move in different directions. So if you're moving to the left and turn to the right, the clouds will move in the direction that you were moving. If you jump, they're just like moving in every direction randomly. And all of these effects I did mostly using a tweening engine, which I suggest all of you guys check out and add to your game. I'm gonna look at tweening engine that I use, TweenMax, a little bit later. It's just like the easiest way to add animations without actually animating something. I'll get back to that. Next step was to add enemies, so they're also jumping around, have some squashing and stuff when they're jumping. And right now, if you hit an enemy, your sprite changes, and I have a slowdown time a bit, just to underline that you were just hit. But it doesn't feel very impactful. It's just like, it just communicates that you hit an enemy and you lose a life, but it's not like super interesting. So the first step is, of course, to add some camera shake when you hit something. Then it feels like, oh, that hurt. That's like probably, you will all want to add camera shake to your game. That's the easiest effect to do, and it's just super powerful. Next thing I did was to add some knockback when you hit something. And then it starts feeling like, oh, I'm not supposed to hit these guys. And now this is actually like a mechanical thing, like both a game design thing that you're stopped from moving and thrown back, but it's also just like rotating the sprite until you land. So these are like the small juicy things that I added to my game. I also added some sounds. I would have liked to have some footsteps here and a sound when you land as well. So, and I would recommend you guys to add sound first, because that's just like usually the easiest thing to add, and it's the one thing that makes the biggest difference in all the like sort of juicy things you can do. Yeah, and I talked to Daniel before the talk, so I added his sprites as well. So you can do this. This like even if you add all these weird effects, it works fine with pixel art. So don't be afraid of like doing one thing or the other. Yeah, I want to show you guys or talk a little bit about like what kind of technology is behind all the juice. I'm sure a lot of you guys.
Yeah, can you wait one moment? We have to fix the balance of the screen, because right now it's just a white block on the screen.
Ah, okay.
So
Yeah.
one moment.
I'm just going to show you a visualizer for tweening, just to show you guys like what the. Are you ready?
One moment. Sorry.
I'm going here. Maybe it's better to go to the site. It's actually a black site, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So I use this. Okay, I use this tweening engine called TweenMax to. Whenever I change a value, like I was doing with when I stretch my avatar, I just set a new height, a new width, and then I just tween it back within a time frame, and that's like one line of code. Like you just take one value from one point to another, 0.3 seconds or something like that, and you can use different algorithms to show like how the value changes over that time span. It can be affected by like this algorithm I use. If you use PowerVo, looks like it's just like a linear thing. Don't use this. This is like the most naive implementation. It's better than nothing, but it's not that juicy. Like this one I like a lot. This one I used on the stretching and the squashing. There are others, bounce for example, that works great if you're especially for objects that has to bounce, of course. But there are lots of cool like easing algorithms you can use with this tool. And if I'm working in JavaScript. This is a HTML5 project, but I know that there are tweening engines for most game programs. Like I would think some of you are probably using Unity. Maybe some of you are using GameMaker, which I would recommend. It's probably one of the best like prototyping tools for jams. But yeah, you'll find some tweening engine that works for you, and just use it. It's brilliant. When you need easy, like small sound effects, there's a tool that's just super nice called SFXer. Someone made for Ludum there. This is the web version. If you just search for SFXR, you can find it. It's just like this awesome sound effect creator for like pixel art-ish games. And even if you just need some placeholder sound effects, you can go here and you can just like create some. What I like to do is, if I find like a jump, I need a jump sound. This one is like, yeah, it's fine, I can use this. Then I save it, and then I mutate it like a couple of times, or 3 or 4 times, and then I save like 4 different sounds, and I randomize between them. So you don't get like the same sound all the time. You can wear it down. Especially for shooting sounds that you use a lot during a game. You just like make 4 different ones and randomize between them. And then it sounds much more dynamic, and you don't get this like strain that you get when you hear the same sound over and over and over. Yeah, those are my like juicing tips for a short game jam game. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Kristoffer. I'm an independent game developer here in Oslo. I'm working on a game called Little Big Mansion and some other games. I'm usually at like the game meetups at the Spillmaker Lauget. So if you guys ever go there, we'll probably meet. That was pretty much it. Thanks. If there are any questions from you guys or from the stream, no? Use Twinning Engine. That's just my last words. Thanks.